All right, welcome in to Check the Mic. We thought we were going to have some time off. Steve is currently in the car on the way to Massachusetts with an entire family. I have shaved myself Walter White level facial hair because it didn't matter. We weren't going to be on camera for a while. Only it turns out the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers had other plans. So they've executed a monster trade. Jalen Ramsey, actually, depending on who you believe, they've executed a couple of trades. But the real crux of it is Jalen Ramsey, cornerback from the Miami Dolphins, is now going to be cornerback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they've given up Minkah Fitzpatrick, their star safety, to make that happen in what effectively appears to be a straight swap. Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey, effectively straight up. There's a second element to this trade, or maybe a separate trade entirely. It's difficult to tell right now. But tight end Jonnu Smith is also going to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a late round swap of draft picks. So that appears to be the kind of entirety of the trade. But look, let's break down my initial reaction to this. I would get Steve's reaction, but as I say, he is in the car on the way to Massachusetts with a crowd of screaming kids. So probably not the best audio we're going to get. I guess from Miami's point of view, the Jalen Ramsey thing makes perfect sense. This was a dead relationship for a while. We have known that this has been coming. They're going to be without Jalen Ramsey. You know, Mike McDaniel's been fielding these questions. Everybody, including themselves, knew they were going to be without Jalen Ramsey this season. So, on the one hand, to parlay a guy who was already out the door into a three-time All-Pro safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, has to be seen as good business. I mean, even though, you know, the kind of salary ramifications, that's great return for a guy that was out the door and you knew you were going to get nothing for effectively. You get the extra layer as well if they're trading Minkah Fitzpatrick back to Miami, the team that drafted him, the team that was terrible at using him in the first place. It is, of course, you know, a different regime, so it's not like they're trading him directly back to the team that had no idea how to use him, because that would have been another fascinating and hilarious layer to this. But from Miami's point of view, I think you have to see this as good business. They got rid of a player that didn't want to be there, a player everybody knew was not going to be there, and they turned him into by far the best player in their secondary now when you look at it on paper. From Pittsburgh's point of view, I think it makes less sense, but you can at least understand it. I mean, Jalen Ramsey should still be the best player in Pittsburgh's secondary. And okay, it cost them the best player in their secondary to make happen, but I think they have more depth and more insulation for that at safety than they do at corner. So if you're looking at this from Pittsburgh's point of view, you could say, you know, Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick is a wash. Let's call it 50-50. You could argue that corner is the more valuable position. You can also argue they had more depth and better players at safety beyond their top guy. So it might be seen as a net positive for the Steelers. I can at least see the argument that they would make to say that this is a net win from their point of view. But I don't think it's as strong an argument as it is from Miami. The other deal, or the second element of this deal, the Jonnu Smith for a kind of late round exchange of picks, I mean, that makes sense from Pittsburgh's point of view in terms of, look, you've made the Aaron Rodgers deal. Arthur Smith clearly loves Jonnu Smith. Even though you already have two tight ends in place, it's not costing you much. You know, it's a salary cap cost that you're bringing on. And ultimately, none of that matters this year if the Aaron Rodgers thing does not go well. You know, if that doesn't go well, it feels like that is it for everybody. It's regime change. It's people getting fired. It's blow it up. It's the whole thing going to hell. So from that point of view, you might as well, right? You might as well bring in Jonnu Smith because it's a move that your offensive coach thinks could make sense. Things work. So I get that. I think the Jonnu Smith thing is relatively inconsequential from Pittsburgh's point of view. You might as well. From Miami's point of view, it's strange because Mike McDaniel seemed to like Jonnu Smith, seemed to want to keep him in the building and keep him around, and yet it hasn't happened. You know, it's just a salary cap thing from Miami's point of view. I don't know if this was overriding Mike McDaniel. You know, if they've specifically gone in a different direction against his wishes, but that would be potentially concerning from their point of view. You know, from Miami's side of it, I guess you can see the argument that, look, Jonnu Smith probably isn't worth the contract that we're getting rid of. So what the hell? But if the head coach wants him, that's risky dealing. Ultimately, though, I think the big thing is why is my internet having such issues? Yeah, the internet appears to be my end for this. So let's I'm gonna end it here and hope that enough of this survive to make it worthwhile. If not, we'll just we'll take the video down at some point because the internet appears to be an absolute disaster. All right. Bottom line, I think it makes a ton of sense for Miami, the Minkah Fitzpatrick part of it. I don't think it makes as much sense for the Steelers, but I at least just about see the logic to it. I think Miami wins this trade, and I think it's not even particularly close. All right, we're going to bail on this because the internet is killing me. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, we'll see you the next time news actually breaks. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.